Hey, everybody. This is something very different that Vance and I have been toying with for quite a while. Now, we have another YouTube channel called Rote Podcast, and that is stands for Written on the Edge. Rote Podcast is a working repository and a creative hub where we try to bring in queer content creators for the queer community and our allies who are creating for the queer community to come and talk about their passion projects, talk about what they're doing, why it's important, why these voices are important to constantly be represented. But there's always been a part of what Vance and I have strong feelings about. In fact, we even had a podcast episode, it was audio only, that was shortly after Trump got elected the first time. And we had a roundtable. And I've been reflecting on that roundtable that we had with different queer authors that we talked about the topical issues of Trump's first presidency and what we thought it could mean. So Vance and I have had this, I don't want to say it's a political slant, it's more of a commentary or a stream of consciousness discussion on topics that we feel are pertinent not only to the mainstream audience, but also to the queer audience in particular, because we're two queer men of a certain age that have experienced and seen a lot of what's going on. And I think one of the perspectives we can bring to this is you have a lot of younger people that are engaged, that are doing, you have Harry Sisson, you have Adam Mockler, you have, the Vanguard, you have all of these liberal voices of which they're now championing and saying, we need more voices like them on. So we're answering the call, guys. But we wanted to have a place where we could talk about these things, but also add our queer men's life experiences on top of it. I'm on the West Coast. I'm a full-blown West Coast boy. I've been in the bubble of California all my life. However, I have traveled wide, so I have seen the world. I'm not one of those Americans who doesn't own a passport, and especially since I'm half Mexican, I probably should carry my passport now, which is another thing we're going to talk about at some point. But anyways, but I have traveled, so I do understand how other people live in the world. And I want to be able to apply my own perception, my own perspective. But down Vance, who we'll introduce to you all if you have not met or watched our other channel, and please go subscribe. We would really love it over there if you could. Just give us a little love.
Worth it.
Yeah. Vance now will introduce himself and talk about his perspective. And I do want to highlight that he comes from the Midwest. And I think this is a position we really need to pay attention to, far more than my own, because the East and West Coast people have a lot of representation of what's going on. Vance has lived his whole life in the Midwest. He understands Midwest ethics, mentality, the way things work. He has seen it firsthand. He's lived it firsthand. And I'll let him explain further. But I just want to highlight that one of the things I would like to put forward in this whole channel's endeavor is that we really listen to some of that Midwest position and perspective, so that we can make sure that it is forefront so that the whole country feels seen.
Well, hello, and thanks for that. Vance Bastion, born, grew up, still live in Wisconsin, the purplest of purple states in the last several elections. Oi. And the thing I want people to understand about the Midwest is it's not a blanket purple. It's a very centralized blue in urban centers, and rural centers are very angry red. Oi.
Yep.
And I'll stop there on the political for the moment. But I have been paying attention. I've been paying attention since the late 70s when I knew I was different and had to look in a mirror and ask why. That's when you start looking at other people too and start questioning why are they like that? What led them to that decision? Have they ever thought about that decision? And often the answer is no, because I learned very early on that everybody's reaction is emotional, not intellectual.
Yep.
And that really describes the Midwest in a way I don't think anybody understands.
Now, Vance, you have a college degree and you actually went
Hmm.
to the University of Wisconsin, right?
No,
Oh, where'd
I
you
went
go? I'm sorry.
Lawrence University in Appleton.
Oh, okay.
Yep, liberal arts, I know. People gonna come at me for it. That said, I live in Madison now and have for uh, a lot of years. 30 plus years. And so
We're
am
both
a
Gen
supporter
Xers, by the way, people.
and am a good supporter of UW-Madison and some of its missions. It has often done a lot to take care of its students, and in return, these students have turned out some brilliant things because it is intellect and creativity that is fostered.
Yeah, my background, I have some college background, but being Latino and Native, the hard part for my family was, even though they encouraged to go to college, and I did do some college, work was really what we were driven to do. So I dove right into the workforce and did schooling on the side when I could. And it got to the point where, I got married, we had kids. So I was more helping our kids get through school than myself. So now in my older age, I'm now going back and kind of finishing all of that. So, I'll end up with a degree. I don't know in what yet. I haven't figured it out. Maybe Native studies. I think that's kind of what my interest is in, or in queer studies, or maybe a
Nice.
mixture of the both. I don't know. But my whole thing is that all the while, even though I've been in the workforce, I have really paid attention to what people discuss at lunch tables, what people discuss in the general public sphere. I've observed carefully. I've watched news religiously, and I consume media widely. I need to put that out there. I do not just watch American news. I watch Canadian news. I watch Deutsche Welle. I watch France 24. I watch WION. I watch all of the news around the world because I want different perspectives. And often the best perspectives you have on American culture comes from the outside because they don't have baked in interests that serve the companies that are within the country. So I always try to see and explore voices. And one of the things we intend to do on this channel is highlight some of those progressive liberal voices, the left-leaning voices, and channels that talk about topics that are very important to us. But at the same time, we need to profess that we're not experts. We're not, we're just two guys who have opinions on and thoughts on, like I tell my husband when my cat starts to figure out, oh, she has thoughts. That's kind of what this is. We have thoughts. We want to express those to you. We're not trying to influence you in that you must agree with what we say. What we want to do is present you with things that we've run across that we find vastly interesting. We try to do as much of a dive into perspectives surrounding the topic that we choose on a given episode. And then we turn it over to you because the idea is we need to have engagement. For me, the largest sin we are committing as a society is apathy. We want shortcuts. We want to be told what to believe, what to think. It makes it easier because our lives are so hectic, and that is, our lives are hectic. That's all true. But it doesn't obviate you using your brain, as Rosie O'Donnell says in League of Their Own, that lump above your head, 3 feet above your ass, that kind of thing. You want to make sure you're using that thing. And we want to bring reason back into the conversation. I want to stop knee-jerk reactions to things, emotive reactions to things. I think that we have too much drama. And I know Vance agrees. One of the things Vance really dislikes is heavy drama for the sake of drama. There is nothing that drives him up the wall more than that. So, and having worked with him for 10 years, I know when, there's a line there and I go, oh, okay, I'm getting way too close. I need to step the hell back. So, no, we've worked on this dynamic for a while now. We have a really good feel for each other. But there will be times where he'll have a different position than I will. And I think a lot of it may come from each of our perspectives and where we grew up and what we experienced. But that's not to say one is right and the other is wrong. They both have validity. More than one thing can be true. So with that, this is our introduction. This is what Rote Spotlight is all about. It is us discussing things that we find interesting. I consider myself a pragmatic progressive. in that I have lived long enough now entering my sixth decade, I have lived long enough to know how little the needle moves. So I have learned to pick my battles very strategically. So I'm a progressive. I'm all for the kids out there, Hassan Piker. I'm all for them championing their big ideas. That fine. You do you. I will cheer you from the sidelines. I will say, go, go, go. But for me, with my limited time left on this planet, I'm really being very, very selective about what I want to press in on and bring to the people for them to watch, understand what our position is, put some mental floss in their heads, and allow you all to go out and do your own research, do your own digging. But I think reason and civility needs to come back into the conversation. Vance?
I don't know that I consider myself anything. Certainly progressive, probably more of an observer, and a collector and assimilator of information. I will watch both sides of everything trying their tricks. And rather than speak first, I'm like, okay, what is the real goal? What is the smoke and mirror? What are they not letting us see? And then I will watch people's very, very heated reactions. And when they're done shrieking, I will just ask, did you get your dopamine rush? And did you solve anything? No? Okay, let's go back to what's really happening. That's how I approach all problems.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So that's it for this quick introduction of who we are, what we're attempting to do here. We are letting the very prolific left side of the conversation, we're answering their call. They wanted more voices to add to the mix. Here we are, raising our hand. We're back here over in the back where all the old folks are sitting. We're, what's the two old guys on Muppets?
Statler and Waldorf.
We're the gang Statler and Waldorf. Think of us in that little balcony. Anyways, so tune in. We'll be doing these on a weekly basis, and we will find a topic that we think is very, very timely and may have some history to it that you may not know of. So there are things like when we get to the whole discussion about the revamp of education, that is a very long story that many people do not give it its due, and they need to understand how long this game has been played. So, put a pin in that one. That's a topic that will be coming up soon. But until next time, keep watching the news, absorb media broadly, go beyond the scope of America, find out how others are talking to you, listen to perspectives outside of your own religion, your own race, your own culture. Listen to what those voices are talking about. I can't tell you how many Asian things I watch and how many Black community things I watch. I want to know what all perspectives are saying on a given topic. So I suggest and I implore you to do the same. So until next time, this is us here at Road Spotlights, and we'll see you real soon.
Bye now.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.